You're listening to and watching Emails Not Dead, brought to you by Cinch Mailgun.
Welcome to Emails Not Dead. My name is Eric, and as with me as always, Jonathan. How are you, sir?
Doing all right, man. Doing well. How about yourself?
Doing all right. We're a podcast for email geeks by email geeks. And of course, Jonathan is the Samwise to my Frodo. And we have a very special episode today. We want to know how we cannot simply walk into Mordor with SVG file and get BIMI going. So with us to help us on our incredible journey is Matthew Vernhout. Matt, how are you today, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Very long-winded introduction, Eric.
Yeah, man.
I like the journey you were trying to portray there. That's a good one.
Yeah, I was trying to paint a word picture. Hopefully everybody's along for the ride. Matt, you've been with us. Oh my gosh, you were in probably our first handful of episodes, or as Jonathan likes to call it,
6 years ago.
Yeah, the Fast Five.
Been that long? Jeez. You know where I sit on the priority scale.
Yeah. Well, no, man, it's great to have you. I really appreciate you coming in and, sharing all your knowledge with us. If you don't mind, you're the principal email advisor at Email Industries, BIMI Group Communications Chair, and Email Karma founder. All that and more.
All that and more.
Yeah.
If you wanted the whole list, how much time do we have?
Yeah. and long hair enthusiast. I am very follically challenged on this podcast with all you gentlemen. So,
this is also the annual meeting of Emo Geeks with Long Hair.
Yeah.
I'd like to call this meeting adjourned.
Yeah.
Long hair and facial hair.
Yeah.
We got
coming in.
Recovered.
Yeah. Oof, I just barely made it in. Yeah.
Your dues are late, Eric.
Yeah, I know. Well, enough about my face. Let's talk about Matthew's. Sir, let's talk about some BIMI. If you don't mind refreshing everybody's memory, BIMI, what is it? What does it do?
Yeah, so BIMI, or the idea of putting a logo, an icon next to your email name, so basically taking that avatar slot, would be, the idea. So BIMI, maybe I'll start with, it's the brand indicator for message identification. That's the longer name.
Yeah.
I guess it's an important thing to start with that.
It's scientific name. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Latin name.
There you go.
So generally the idea is, it's how do you take an email domain, and associate an address or an avatar with it across multiple domains at once, right? It was a very sort of fragmented setup before. Yahoo was doing their own thing, Google kind of did their own thing, Microsoft was doing their own thing for a while, et cetera, right? And a group of us got together and said, what if we could just do it once and everyone could benefit from it? And that's where sort of the idea of BIMI came from, right? Is set it up one time, everyone can reference it. There's some validation that gets done. It gets tied to authentication for your domain to make it a little more secure and make sure that you're not seeing cross-pollination. Because there was a history of this is my domain, but not my logo showing up. Because sometimes the people that were approving logos or pairing logos didn't necessarily think that, domain.com versus domain.co.uk may not be the same company, but they would assign the same logos to them. So, in this case, as a brand owner, you can assign your own logo now.
Heck yeah. I feel like I also need just to tag along with the definition. This has nothing to do with the definition of it at all. When we start talking about this subject in general, people start to get a little bit timid about it, thinking it can get a little too technical or there might be a little too much going on. We're going to try to keep it light. We're going to try to touch on the feeling of BIMI rather than the technical configuration and everything else. We might talk about a few of those things, but we definitely want to talk about it as a whole. So don't stop. Don't tune out. Just listen a little bit.
I'll explain it like I'm explaining it to a 5-year-old. It's all good.
Yeah. Eric, explaining it to Eric. It's totally fine.
Yeah, right here. Hit me. I like to think of it as a cherry topper. It just reminded me because I had a cherry pen right here, for your good deeds, but it's not as easy as just hey, you're doing well. Boom, you get a logo now. Trying to understand how beneficial is it? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Because there is a little bit of legwork, but we can get into that a little bit later.
And I think the second topic that we know we had is Eric already did the introduction for this. Matt, you're leading the BIMI Group, kind of driving adoption for DMARC enforcement. So that, I guess, like kind of pushing this out, right? So like, just tell us about the BIMI Group. I know you've explained that to us, but what are you doing with the BIMI Group? What's kind of its objective?
Yeah, so the BIMI Group is a collaboration between the teams at Google, Apple, Yahoo, Comcast, Fastmail, MailChimp, Twilio, and a few individual members such as myself, not necessarily affiliated with the company as a member. And what we're really trying to do is the basis of BIMI started as a way to reward people for doing DMARC and getting good authentication along the way at an enforcement level, right? DMARC's been around a long time, and it was really how do we continue to drive adoption, right? We all know 2023, Google and Yahoo basically said, do it or don't deliver, which was like a big benefit to the BIMI in a way to sort of get everyone to that level of, okay, you've already started the journey, but really it's the reward for doing authentication well and getting to an enforcement status. That's your prerequisite. If you're not doing DMARC at either a P equals quarantine or a P equals reject, BIMI's not going to work. So that's sort of step one for implementing BIMI. And if you can do that, and you own a trademark on your logo, it's a way to put your brand right in the user's face. Historically, studies have shown people recognize logos or pictures faster than words, right?
Yeah.
Everybody in their brain can say, I know the logo for Burger King. I know the logo for McDonald's. I know the logo for, Bank of America. I know what it looks like. Boom. It's going to be in your face every time you open that email.
Yeah. And even more trusted, I feel, if I see a logo there that I know tried and true, I was like, okay, this is definitely coming from Hot Topic. I definitely know I want to get in there and, get my points,
HT.
Yeah.
With the previous avatar setup, right? Like anyone could create a Google account, upload whatever image they want, right? BIMI now is saying it's not just a matter of uploading a logo to your Google account. It's now a matter of Google saying your logo is hosted and verified and has a certificate with it, and you have good reputation and strong authentication. Now I'm going to show your logo, right? So they're actually taking that a step farther to reduce the amount of impersonation that was previously happening.
Oh yeah, right on.
I mean, it's definitely one of those things where I know it was recommended all over the place where you can go and, hey, you don't have any way to identify yourself, go in, create an account at this location, put in whatever you want as your photo for your logo, and then that's going to be, set everywhere. But it's one of those things where it can be hacked. It can be, still an impersonation by a different entity that's doing that and just signing up and getting those lookalike domains and, changing the little things here and there to get something else that's registered that's close. And it becomes very dangerous to have that in and of itself. And I know that when we talk about brand, we talk about branding, we talk about the people that are wanting to do that. I know there's a lot of them that are already pushing out the BIMI records, pushing out DMARC, getting everything set up and well and done. But I think the other thing that we want to call out is that it's not just for them, unless it is. Matt, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I'm speaking out of turn. Just for those big guys.
No, ideally it's for everyone, right? Unfortunately, there's some cost associated with it. From the point of view of, you got to do DMARC, which might have some cost for business process to get all your authentication set up and things like that. If you have a vendor that doesn't support alignment for authentication, maybe you have to change vendors, or maybe you're waiting on your vendor to upgrade, things like that. Like these are things that need to happen anyways. And then, to get a certificate, there's a cost to that as well, like any other certificate. And I think that's the piece where some people stumble is, oh my God, the cost of the certificate, right? But like BIMI has a cost-free alternative. It just doesn't work everywhere, right? So you could I publish my logo on my domain. I don't pay for a cert from anyone, but it also means that there's limited audience for it.
Yeah, and I mean,
do it because I want to learn how to do it, so I can walk it through my customers, right? So it's certainly that kind of thing. But yeah, like unfortunately, there's cost associated sometimes with doing business, and this is one of those costs. Call it $150 a month is roughly what it's going to cost you, give or take, based on current certificate prices.
And that's the certified mark, right? Not the verified.
They're both around the same price, actually. And part of the reason for that is the verification process that you go through is basically the same, right? You have to show up. You have to have, proof of who you are, proof you work for the company. There's an entire verification, proof that you own the logo, right? There's a whole verification process that you can't necessarily automate. And that costs money. It costs time. So could there be, more affordable options? Sure, but that's the cost of stuff is outside the BIMI Group's purview because the certificate providers manage that. So, we can recommend to them or tell them, we're getting complaints that people think it's too expensive. But, I might as well go and complain that the cost of my car is too much to the dealership as well. They don't necessarily have a say in it, right? The manufacturer sets the price. And in this case, it's the same with the cert providers. They set the price. They follow the rules. They help people get onboarded.
Granted, that's a great example, the car example. And it is one of those things where it depends on who's at the table, right? And coming into these conversations and wanting to participate in them, if there's somebody new to the market that wants to do these kind of things and they come in with a lower price, well, then that drives the whole market down. So there's always variability there, and that totally makes sense. And I did want to ask, for the verified mark versus the certified mark, whenever we're talking about that stuff, for everyone that doesn't know, those are certificates that you have to get for your logo and publish them with your logo. And that allows it to show up. But when you don't have those, where's the limitation? What are you seeing from experience, from what you know of, with where that logo is going to show up and where it's not?
Yeah, so some mailbox providers have decided if you're doing DMARC and you publish a self-asserted logo, so it's basically a logo with no certificate, they will show it for certain classes of mail. For example, Yahoo will show it on marketing communications that have a good reputation with or without a VMC or CMC. But they're only going to show it on a subset of mail. So oftentimes people will be like, well, I set it up and I sent myself a test to Yahoo and it didn't work. It's like, well, yes, for several reasons. Your personal email is never going to show it. But, if you wait and you send enough volume email to Yahoo, their system's going to flag that you've published a BIMI record. They're going to flag that somebody should review it on their team because they do have a manual review. The team will approve it. And then your logo will show up on your transactional or marketing mail. It's not going to show up ever on your personal mail. It's just the way they've got it set up. Oh. Whereas Google won't show your logo at all without a VMC or a CMC. Fastmail, for example, will use the VMC if it's there, but they don't necessarily care as much. La Poste also has some rules around that where if you don't have a cert, you can contact their team and their team will go through a bit of a validation or verification process with you. So, this cert makes it a lot more streamlined. Apple requires the cert as well, but not everybody does. And it really depends on your audience, right? And I would even say it depends on your audience if you should get a cert. If your audience is 80% Microsoft, wait, Microsoft's not currently supporting BIMI. So it might not be worth it. But if your audience is 80% Gmail, okay, it's probably worth looking at a cert because it's going to have the biggest impact there.
I feel like that was the elephant in the room. Microsoft and them not supporting it yet.
Hey, they're getting there.
I can't comment on whether they're going to or not either, unfortunately. That's for them to announce should they choose to. But I do know we've had several conversations with them trying to lay out sort of the benefit for the mailbox provider side, also sort of the benefit for senders and sort of how it helps with, the Google and Yahoo have both put a check mark to say they verified the sender as well, right? So there's an actual visual indicator that says they've authenticated the logo, they've authenticated the domain, so they believe that it's a trustworthy sender.
Yeah, and that totally makes sense. And I think it's fair and it's valid. I think it's one of those things that needs to happen. And I think then as the senders, I know that's one of the things from our side, because we get to communicate with those senders a lot and know and understand where they're at and what they're trying to accomplish. We encourage them to do, DMARC first of all, like everybody should be doing DMARC, period. And then the next part is that BIMI step. And then whether they should do it and the evaluation that they need to take on their internal business process level of doing the certificates, kind of getting everything registered, getting everything published and putting it out there. And I know there's certain companies that are more willing to, and then whether they're ready to or not, they're more willing to have that conversation. And there's other companies that really should be having that conversation that we see that they're not. and don't have a whole lot of interest in it. From my perspective and from my side of things, it's trying to encourage them and trying to get them to understand the benefits and understand the downfalls. I kind of wanted to have a little bit of a conversation around that. Like, when is it worth it? What are people seeing in the space in general, whether they're doing it or they're not, or they're waiting, or what the case is? Matt, from your side?
We talked about sort of the infographic that the BIMI Group has in regards to where we know current support status is, right? There could be other domains we don't know about. People have been developing this on their own, integrating it into their solutions. Some of them tell us, some of them don't. Or, when we're at an event, we might talk with somebody and they'll say, oh yeah, I'm really interested in doing it. We've started to make, steps down that path. So, as we're seeing on the screen here, like left-hand side, these are all the domains that we know that currently support. And when I say all, like it also includes like, Fastmail has multiple domains like PLBot and things like that. So they're going to support that. Google has all your Google Workspace stuff it supports. GMX and WebDE are supporting it in a fashion because they also have other tools. But then mail.com, which is also part of their infrastructure, isn't yet ready, right? So there's different parts that are progressing. But, I would say at least half of these on this list of supporting developed it on their own and then reached out to us and said, okay, we've done these things. Sometimes they have questions. Sometimes they're just letting us know. But basically, everyone in the middle has their own sort of classification of how they're doing it. And at this point, Microsoft had their own logo verification for a while. That kind of went away. We're hoping at some point they come back and say, yeah, we're going to work on BIMI. But at this point, they've kind of kept the cards close to their chest, so we don't know.
That was an interesting choice. I mean, and every platform I think has to definitely try. I mean, there's other things that have come out of development in that way, so I'm not going to knock them for not doing it and not participating from the beginning. Right. But at this point, it'd be nice for them to have. I know people have been asking about it, and like that's great. And if it comes cool, then that'll just bring in somebody else that's going to do it. And I mean, to your point, exactly that. The what you were saying earlier, that if you're sending email over to just Microsoft itself, maybe it doesn't matter. Don't kill yourself trying to implement something like this. Focus on the DMARC, though. I'm going to keep saying it. DMARC is definitely the one that you really, really want to look into. And then the BIMI side would be second. I know, Eric, you talked to a bunch of different subset of people that I talked to. Like, what is it playing like for you? Like people that are considering or not?
Yeah, I know that the conversation has been brought up more. And Microsoft has always been one of those that have been like top 5. When we're looking at, recipient domains and how their lists kind of pan out. It's usually like anywhere between 60 to 85%. I've had one, sending to Google, and then the rest of them are like a mixture of either Yahoo, Microsoft, or, Comcast is up there as well. So of course it'd be great to have them into the fold. And like with them, like recently doing the authentication push and, pushing more for transparency, I think it's probably moving them toward that step. I know, Matt, you probably couldn't talk about it, but it seems like it'd be probably getting there.
I actually have no insight into where they're currently at, but I would say, since they've started to take those steps to require authentication, like even for a brand to implement BIMI, the receiving platforms have to be set up to do all the authentication testing and stuff as well. So yep. I have no insight into what their actual plans are, but I would hope that this is a path that they're looking at. Like I said, I know that I've had conversations with people from Microsoft at different events that many of us frequent and sort of put it in. And it's always been, it's on the radar, but anything that's on the radar with them could be 2, 3, 5, 10 years away because their development list is so long. But there's no official announced plans, or if they had announced plans, I would have moved them one category to the left. At this point, it's something that we would love to see, but really it's up to them to come out and tell us if they're willing to do it. And they may not even do that until they announce that they're going to support it, right? They're somewhat secret that way, sort of announce things as they happen.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. Like they have, I've seen some, like, what is it? Like webinars that they put out. I've seen like, different events that they've been at, and they've been kind of transparent about some other stuff. I'd hope that we see something more about this soon, because I'm like JT was saying, it's a good to have, and it pushes like those good senders just to give them that extra, little something.
The other thing you'll probably note about most of these platforms you see on the page is they all control their own mail environments, right? Like these are going to be in either their mobile apps or it's going to be in their web client. But you don't see here yet things like Thunderbird, Outlook Desktop, other sort of desktop-based email clients, because it's actually much harder to be the external MUA trying to figure these things out compared to the web client or the mobile client that's controlled by Gmail, for example. They can do all that stuff in the back end, cache things, whatever. It's a lot harder for someone like a Thunderbird to potentially do it. Even here, showing on the screen now, kind of what it looks like. Now, these images may be a little bit old because they don't necessarily need the checkmark avatar, but this is an example of what BIMI is going to look like in your mail client. On the left-hand side, it's what it shows up like in the list view. On the right-hand side, it's what it looks like when you open the actual message in your message view. So you're going to see that continuation of logo across the board. The only other thing I can say is every client's a little different. So while this is what Google might look like or what Yahoo might look like, you're going to see it slightly different across the board for different clients and sort of how they render it. We tried to give a general idea of what that looks like here.
And of course, different with Apple. I think I've had some folks, reach out to me specifically saying like, hey, we can't see it in our Apple applications. Is there something wrong with it? Is there something going on? And like, it just looks, I can see it here. It looks different,
And this is one of those pieces, right? The implementation of BIMI by like, say, iOS Mail, right? Requires certain headers be injected into the message by the recipient domain because it's not likely Apple, right? So they need someone like a Fastmail to insert, here's the BIMI headers that I looked at and verified and maybe they have to ARC sign them, things like that. So, Apple has a set of requirements. They're listed on their development pages. If you want it to show, you need to be, first off, on that list of mine that you were looking at with the infographic. You have to be on that list, which means you have to talk to somebody in the BIMI group. That's one. Secondly, you have to inject the right headers for Apple based on their development guides to have that logo carried forward. Right? This is the beauty of email. Everything is consistent except until it's not consistent. Right? So everything's the same for everyone except it's not. So the general idea is, BIMI gives you a standard as a publishing entity to say, here's where my logo is, here's my verification, here's my certificate. The mailbox provider or the entity displaying the logo gets to choose where, when, and how. The one piece that, I know we talked about it when we were sort of planning this discussion, BIMI has uses beyond just email as well. This could be put in search. Well, Google could take these logos and put them in search, say it's a verified domain. We know there's a certificate. It could be put into the new subscriber centers that they've been launching. So the logo could show up next to the sender name. Basically anywhere that you could have a representation of a domain and logo tied together, you could use the BIMI records to do so in some fashion. It was never designed to just be email exclusive. So social networks could use it. Any platform, any email platform could use it internally to say, like, here's your user avatar. Imagine, someone logged into your platform, right? One of your platforms, and their user avatar was just automatically, because they verified their domain with you, their BIMI record logo. They know what it looks like immediately. So it has implications beyond just email that we haven't seen anyone sort of really develop yet.
It's pretty dope.
If you want to do that, reach out. We'd love to talk to you.
Yeah.
If you're out there, yes.
BIMIGroup.com, contact us.
Yeah.
We'll reply.
Matt will follow up. Yeah. But it has a point, though, because that reminds me, like, and we were talking about this when we were playing this, but looking at the iOS side, especially on Apple Mail, but I'm so glad that Apple took the time. I was literally just looking at it as we were just talking about this. If you literally go to an email, like I'm looking at an email right now from Live Nation. Live Nation. That's a different topic, but
that's another podcast.
You brought it up.
I know, yeah, that's our music podcast. But if I go to an email right now from Live Nation, I see their BIMI logo, and it's literally got a check mark next to it. If I click on it, and it literally says from Apple, it's like, your email provider iCloud verified that this email is coming from the owner of the logo and domain email.livenation.com. And then it takes you to a hyperlink, an actual article about BIMI support in Apple Mail. Like, that's amazing. Like, we're finally making these connections for the rest of consumers and the rest of other people, because like I primarily only get to talk to people like you guys get to talk to more like highly technical people, while all the folks I talk to are a little bit more on the learning for the first time side. So it's making it easier and easier for the people to like, figure it out. Like, okay, this is a reputable email source. This is someone I can actually trust. These other ones, these, possible, South African princes that want my money. That's not real. So it's good things. I'm happy about it.
And I mean, to your point, though, it's awesome to see that it is happening and when there is adoption, because I think we are constantly talking about security and doing all those things on the internal side. And when we do the podcast, we talk a lot about protecting your brand, protecting your domain through reputation, doing the right thing, and making sure that you're hitting the right audience. Then we also talk about doing things like DMARC that's going to lock it down so people don't impersonate you and do those kind of things. This is that next step of brand recognition, when people see and recognize your logo and you can then show them that it's you. I think that's a whole nother step and a whole nother level, which is really good for email in general. I think the email industry, where the podcast itself is called Email is Not Dead, but we want email not to be dead, because otherwise we're going to be out of a job, at least this one. But whenever you have that, and I mean, I know going through my mail and I see those logos start populating on there, I mean, being internal and being in mail lets me know, okay, they took the extra step, they took the extra time to do that. From a non-technical person, from somebody who has that perspective of just sitting there, I've talked to different people that way that do see those logos and they recognize, and then they know me as the email person, so they're like, how come this company has the logo on their thing and this company doesn't? It's like, cool, they took the time to verify. They're just showing you that they are who they are, and I can confidently tell that to people like my mom, who's prone to clicking on spam. Not that she has in a while, but she used to. So just to call her out a little bit, but it's one of the where it is those steps, and it is evolving and getting closer to hopefully a better place and a better world, and we keep cleaning it up as we go along.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's all incremental steps. I mean, it took more than a decade for somebody to come out and say DMARC is now mandatory, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in a decade we'll say BIMI is now mandatory as well.
I mean, the baby steps.
We don't rush these things in email.
No, man.
We take our sweet, sweet time.
It's all about the carrot before the stick. If you want to see some of the logos that have recently shown up in BIMI, the brands that are implementing the records, Redshift put together BIMI Radar. So you can go and you can see what the logos look like. You can go and see when the certs were issued. It'll give you some indication of the last 50 certs or whatever it is that were issued. And you can kind of see, if you scroll down just a little bit, keep going to the graph. One more. Yeah, so you can see this bottom graph here, right? So this yellow line, I believe, is DMARC adoption over time. The green line is, can you hover over it for me? I want to see what the pop-up is. There we go. So there's DMARC reporting domains, BIMI ready domains, BIMI aware domains, and then BIMI with VMC. So you can kind of see this was September 2024. Yeah. Right now we're moving into January. We've got this huge push. There's 5,000 domains showing VMC almost here now. So it is steadily growing as we go across with the number of brands adopting BIMI and being BIMI ready. And there's a huge gap between DMARC ready and BIMI ready. Yeah. But you can see they're both trending upward, which is what we actually wanted to see as an industry group moving forward with this type of service. It's still a relatively small number of domains, but it's growing month over month.
I was going to say that bump there, you said that was when the Google Yahoo enforcement happened?
It was kind of farther back than that. I think it was March 2024. It has fallen off at the chart at this point, because I think the chart only goes back a year and a bit. But there was a huge jump sort of before March of 2024 of DMARC adoption. But you can see that it's almost doubled in the last sort of, call it 18 months.
Yeah.
From 4 million to 7 something or more million. So
nice.
4.3 up to 7.8 for DMARC reporting. BIMI ready is now 3.5 million. So the numbers are very small on the graph, but the point being, we're seeing that steady shift and growth of people who are implementing it and adopting it. which is great. It's what we want to continue to see.
10 years. We'll check back on this in 10 years. I bet it'll be massive.
Everybody will be doing it.
Yeah, everybody.
We need to bring Matt down for other topics besides that, so we don't wait another 10 years to have him on.
We'll do a 6-year check-in here.
Yeah, you scroll down, it'll just show you some of the most recent logos as of today for VMCs. So, and the date. So like you can see like these most recent ones 3 days ago, which was Friday, which probably means that the new ones haven't been updated since Friday. So
Well, hey, it's
That's
Monday.
awesome. That's really cool.
yeah. And I think the other thing, so like DMARC, put it at your org domain and all your subdomains will follow suit as long as they are DMARC enforcement subdomains. So you don't have to go out and buy a VMC for every single subdomain. You can buy one for your organizational domain. Some of these you'll notice it might be the same logo, but it's because one's a .com, one's a .co.uk. When you have different TLDs, you need to buy additional information in your cert. It could still be one cert that covers multiple domains, but for every domain you add, there's an additional cost.
Oh, yeah. Oh, next door, they just updated their app. Yeah.
I know. I just saw that. I was like, oh, that's in my inbox.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Now I know everyone in my neighborhood complained about the same thing. I'll be able to see the link. Also, Liquid Death, very cool. I love that.
Nice.
Tillamook, my favorite cheeses. I love seeing this.
Oh, yeah. The way that logo looked, I was going to say cheese, but then I was just like, no, it's probably like fancy yachts or something.
Yeah, no, it's Tillamook. Yeah. Mary Kay, the pink Cadillacs. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah. Terminix, yeah. We could look at these all day.
I just only got your favorite brand.
Instacart, hey. No. All right.
One thing I'd want to close with, because I know
Yeah.
we're getting close to time, is just the common things that I see errors with BIMI logo files. First off, put on a solid background. Put your logo. Don't use a clear background because it looks really weird between dark mode and light mode. Put on a solid background. Make it square. Make it look good in a circle. Like understand that your logo is going to probably end up in a circle, or what do they call it? Like a squircle? So it's like a squared off, circular square. Right? A circle. So make sure your logo looks good there. So leave enough white space. What's the design term? Bleed space or something like that. So make sure you leave enough of that. It's got to be square. It's got to be a tiny PS version. So you get a lot of people that complain the base profile for SVG has been discontinued or no longer used, but for our version of SVGs, it's still its own sub classification, tiny PS. So base profile would need to be that. We also have to have SVG version 1.2. So there's potentially some manual manipulation to your SVG file you need to make in that case. But just, understand it's going to look in a circle. So expect what it would look like that way. And what else? We have some great tools on the BIMI Group website to help you. So if you've designed your SVG and you're almost there and you can't quite figure it out, use the conversion tool. The conversion tool is open source. You can read all the code if you want. Basically, all it does is manipulate the SVG in a little bit of ways to make sure you have the right version number, the right base profile, the right title structure. It's not doing anything malicious that way. So use that. It'll really help. A lot of times people come to me like, my SVG is broken, and I just run it through the tool and send it back to them. And be like, works fine now. Because they get like 95% of the way there, and they miss that one thing. So, and then you have to host it on a secure server, make sure it's web accessible, because that's the other thing. People will put it behind like Cloudflare, and because it's a robot trying to reach out to the image file, Cloudflare will block it. And then they're like, why isn't my BIMI logo showing? I published it. It's because you basically put it behind a CAPTCHA. If the robots can't complete the CAPTCHA, they're never going to see your logo file. So just make sure it's web accessible from anywhere. And those are sort of the really common things. And honestly, for most people that reach out, they're like, how do I get started? We have this wonderful implementation guide. It's the first link on our contact page, even like read the information from the implementation guide. It's overly simplified, but the first step is get DMARC in order.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's how
nice.
If you ask me where do I start, my answer is 99% of the time going to be get DMARC in order.
Hopefully people listening here know to get DMARC in order. We talk about it way too much.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll just call out myself.
Not just P equals none. It has to be at a quarantine phase.
Yeah.
Right? So it's get it in order and then get it at enforcement. So there is like that additional step besides just do DMARC. So But that's in the implementation guide. We tried to write it as simple as possible. Like, here's 4 things you need to do. DMARC's the first one. SVG is the second. VMC is the third. Publisher DNS is the last one. Like, it's kind of that order. So, that's all I would say is use the tools, read the guide. Everything's on the website you need to self-help.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really, really cool. It's one of those things where people have hesitation of diving in and taking that first step. And I think any kind of guidance they can get is great. So thank you for the guidance. And also, hopefully everybody listening understands that, hey, this doesn't have to be scary. There's help. There's a lot of stuff out there for it. And you don't have to wait to be, McDonald's, Walmart, I don't know who else is doing. I don't know who actually has the logos either. But you don't have to get to that level in order to publish something that's going to be visible. Like if you have a brand and you're trying to establish a brand and get that known and be out there, like it's a good way to start that journey and kind of keep going on that, and include it in your path.
And there's a couple of different logo marks that are important to know. Like there's the VMC, which is for people with trademark logos or wordmark, right? There's the CMC, which would be good for people that maybe don't own a logo mark, but they've had exclusive use of their logo for greater than 12 months, and they've been using it for that period of time. There's a government mark. So if you are a government entity, you can get a mark. You just have to prove that you're associated with the government entity. Usually governments have like, my logo is in some piece of legislation. You can just point to and be like, my logo is here in this piece of legislation. And then there's the idea of what's called a modified mark. So if you have a long word or multiple words as your logo mark or word mark, stacking them, for example, would be a modified mark. Because it's not your exact match mark. It's you stack them to make it look better in a circle. So that would be sort of a modified mark. So there's a few different marks that people qualify for, and they all cost kind of the same. I mean, unfortunately. But as more people get into the market of selling certs, we hope that the pricing will, reflect that as well. More pricing options.
Yeah.
But, working on that.
Right on it. Can you stack them too? Like if you have one, like do you see folks with like all the certs or just one or the other?
You just pick the best one, honestly. Yeah. The best one that fits your brand. Most people go with the VMC. It has the widest adoption. These are relatively new. Government marks have been around a while as well. Obviously limited to government entities though. So they're not as widely used except for government entities.
Right. I couldn't get one. Right.
Not unless you form your own
government of.
Yeah.
The government of Eric.
Trinidad, man. Come on.
Out of all the ones you want,
Government of Trinidad, Texas. There you go.
Yeah. Wasn't it like a Family Guy episode where like he had his own like country that was around his house?
Oh, yeah.
That was a long, you remember that? That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
The things you remember, Thomas. It's awesome.
I know.
Well, the things that we want to remember are ways that we can contact you, Matt. If we want to see anything or get in contact with you in any way or look at the stuff that the BIMI Group has, where can these fine people go?
Yeah, so bimigroup.org is our website. We're also on Blue Sky, same name. I think we're bimigroup.bluesky.com, whatever the search for BIMI Group, you'll find us. And if you fill out the contact form at the BIMI Group, the chances of me responding are very, very high. As Thomas found out one day when he wrote in, I responded. There are other people that do respond, but I do most of the responding. If you ever want to reach me, emailkarma.net is my website. On Blue Sky, I'm emailkarma.com. Eventually, I will migrate my website to .com. I just haven't figured out how to do that without blowing up 17 years worth of SEO. You can find me, Email Karma. If you search for it, you'll get to me. I'm also on LinkedIn, Matthew Vernhout, if you want to reach out. Put in the note how you heard about me. It's easier for me to decide if I'm going to connect with somebody or not.
Yeah.
I heard your voice on this podcast.
Yeah. Man, I
get a lot of random requests for people trying to sell me stuff. So if you don't tell me who you are, if I don't know you, it might be slim picking as I'm accepting or not. It's a filter method that I've had to develop, unfortunately.
Man, I saw fresh face Matthew Vernhout like on 15 years ago on a YouTube video, like clean shaven, short hair. Oh my gosh. I can't even remember what the video was, but yeah, you're like a little kid, man. Like, it was good.
I mean,
It was
even then
good.
I was old. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, this is my 25th year in email this year. So
Oh, right on.
Nice.
15
Right.
years ago, I was old in email too.
Yeah. Well, man, for another 25 more, hopefully we'll have you on before your 50th year in email. Please come back and join us. Thomas, if they want to find us for now, for then, for whenever, where can people look for us?
For now, you can find us
Yeah.
at mailgun.com/resources/podcast. You can also watch this on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@mailgun. Emails Not Dead is also on Spotify, Apple Music Podcasts, all that fun stuff, Google Podcasts, all that fun stuff as well. And also to clarify, it is BIMI Group. That is BIMI Group.org. Sometimes people will spell it as BEEMEE or something like that. I'm like, no, it's
BIMI?
BIMI Group.org. Yeah, like, isn't BIMI from Adventure Time? Like, I think sometimes people mix that up.
There are clearly other groups out there that use BIMI as well. There's like a religious group that uses it for something. There's an investment group, I think, that uses it for something. So occasionally we do get misdirected email about like those types of topics. Unfortunately, we can't help with those. What can we help with? You lost access to your Yahoo account. I can't help you with that either. I'm sorry. But if it's related to putting a logo in email, pretty sure I have an answer.
Gotcha. You're their guy.
Nice. All right, on, man. Well, thank you again. Appreciate you as always. And until the next time, everybody be safe. Take care of each other.
This has been a production of Cinch Mailgun. Learn more at mailgun.com.